Hello, I'm Jack and this is Entertainment World, and today I'll be talking about 300 Rise of an Empire, which was directed by Noam Moreau, produced by Gianni Nunari, Zack Snyder, Deborah Snyder, Mark Canton and Bernie Goldman, and is the second film in the 300 film series. And I know this is meant to be a Zack Snyder film review series, but as this film was written by Zack Snyder and Kurt Johnstad as well, and he obviously produced and wrote it, and is a sequel to his film he did, I thought I would do it in this series as well, and I wanted to do it here before I got into his DC films, because then I could go straight into the DCEU after that, so I wanted to do that here. Anyway, so I'll be reviewing this film now, and as like always, I will be starting off with the negatives. Okay, so my first negative is, with the first film, it is incredibly famous for its action sequences. That is what the film is most famous for. You know, it's fast slow-mo, slow-mo, it's long takes, it's editing, it's pacing, the amount of gore used, and the dramatic set pieces. This film doesn't, have anywhere near as good as action as the first one. It uses the same fast, slow motion thing as the first film, but it just doesn't do it anywhere near as well, because Zack Snyder did the first one, and he knew exactly what he wanted to do with it. It was his vision, it was his sort of style of doing things, and because he does it a lot since, he knows exactly how he wants to do it. Whereas with this film, because it was a different person directing it, it felt like somebody trying to emulate the same thing, but not knowing how to do it as well as the person who did it the first time round, if that makes sense. And because of that, it doesn't come across anywhere near as well. The fast and slow-mo just feels like it's doing it for the sake of doing it. It doesn't have the same dramatic impact. It doesn't time it as well. It just sort of feels like a very over-stylized choice, because the first film did it, and the first film was famous for doing it, so we'll do it in this film as well. And in doing so, it doesn't come across anywhere near as good. It relies way too much on cartoony-looking blood. The first film had the same very, very, very dark, shiny red blood coming out of people. And I know it's a stylistic choice, and to fit in with the comic graphic novel, however you want to word it. But the problem is with this film, it relies on it. In the first film, it's a cool addition to what's happening with the action scenes, and it adds a bit of style to it. Whereas with this film, it's just so over the top and unnecessary. It's just every little stab and slash just has this huge amount of shiny cartoon, really fake looking blood coming off it, and there's so much of it, and it's just so over stylized and it's just so over the top and unnecessary that it's hard to take what's happening seriously, because there's just so much of it. And it also, a lot of the time, looks like it's trying to cover over the fact that the sword, or the axe, or the spear, or whatever the weapon is, at that moment, isn't actually making contact with the person it's hitting. So it'd be like a guy swings his sword and a guy gets slashed, and there'll be loads of fake cartoony blood splash all over the place as he falls over, but there's no mark on him. So it just looks so bizarre and over the top and mental. Although there are some cool, cool kills, but you know what I mean, oh, that was well done, or that was dramatic, or the gore CGI was done really well, but just for the most part, it's just loads of just the same cartoony bloodshot over and over again for every single kill all the time, and it just does not come across that. It doesn't look very good. And speaking of that, in some places, the CGI looked a bit weird. It's great for a lot of the film, but in some places it just looked a bit bizarre and not the best. But that's only in a few places, that's not the majority of the film. But yeah, just on the whole, the action was nowhere near as good as the action of the first film. Way too much blood. Doesn't use the whole fast slow-mo thing very, anywhere near as effectively as the first film. And it was just felt like it was trying to emulate Zack Snyder. The best way I could put it was like, somebody watched 300, was like, that was really cool, I'm going to do that again. And they then did it, but they didn't understand what made the action cool in the first place. So they just tried to copy it, dial it up to 11, without actually really realising what made it cool. Because fast slow-mo isn't cool if you do it in the wrong places, and this film does it in a lot of the wrong places. So, yeah, that's my view on the action scenes in terms of the negatives. Though the cast for the most part were good, and I'll talk about them more in the positives, they did lack the power of the cast from the first film. You have Jared Butler and Michael Fassbender in the first one, yelling, and Jared Butler gives a bunch of fantastic speeches throughout the film. And he's got the big, powerful voice. Michael Fassbender does a good job. Lena Headey did a good job in the first one as well with her speeches. As the cast in this one, they don't have the same power. They don't emulate the same level of emotion and aggression and belief as the actors did in the previous film. And just because of that, I didn't find the characters or the actors that interesting. In fact, when I was sort of watching it, I didn't really care about any of these characters. I wasn't that invested in what was happening to them. I wasn't really that fussed. There was no character in it which I was like, yes, I want you to live, or yes, I want you to die, or anything like that. It was just like, I don't really care about any of you people, if I'm being honest. You're sort of... They just came across as impartial to me. And that's sort of how I feel about most of the film, really, is I'm just sort of impartial to it. However, the performances were good, and I'll talk about them more in the positive section, but they just didn't have the same power or the same... when Jared Butler's yelling things like, this is Sparta, or take from them everything and give them nothing... give them nothing and take from them everything. You're like, wow, I believe that. That's so cool. There's nothing like that in this film. I was just like, you're not selling me on this like the previous film did. So that's my negatives when it comes to the cast. And the other thing, Queen Gorgo, who is Lena Headey's character in this film, I might be wrong, and I've only watched the film once, and I might have missed something, and if I am deeply sorry for saying this, but her character comes across as mental in this film. When she's first introduced, she's like, no Spartan bows, Spartans will kill everyone, because Spartans are the best, and she makes a joke about how an Athenian likes to rub his cock to the view of Spartans. Yeah, which is weird. Anyway, so all of these, all of these things where she's like, Spartans are the best, Spartans are great, Spartans are Spartan-y, whatever, I don't know. And then she's like that in 300 as well. She's like, don't let my husband's sacrifice be in vain. We will fight all of the leaders, and we will, not leaders, Persians, and we will defeat them, because we are Spartans, we are the best. We will rally our troops and destroy them all. And then it cuts back to her after she's just given that speech from 300, and she's like crying, saying, no more of us will die. We won't fight anymore. This is pointless. I won't sacrifice any of our men, any more of our children. And then she goes back to, we will kill them all because we're Spartans and we're the best. And I'm just like, what? What? Where is this like all of a sudden, like, I don't want to fight anymore come from? It just sort of like happens, and I feel like I have missed something. I don't know if I missed it, I don't know if something was deleted. If I missed it, I am deeply sorry for saying this, but it just comes across so like, we will fight, we will destroy them. And in the other film, because this film is a prequel, a midquel, and a sequel, the film is a prequel at the start, and then there's a midquel, so it happens at the same time, and like the last half an hour of the film is set after 300. If that'll, I'm trying to describe that as best as I could. And because for the most part 300 and this film are happening at the same time, she has the same attitude as she did in 300. But when it continues on from 300 by like 1 hour, she's all of a sudden dropped her. I mean, she just murdered. If you're looking at the chronological, history of events, she's just murdered a politician in front of everybody for calling her a whore and saying, "We will go fight the Persians." And I was all of a sudden is like, "No, we won't fight. I'm going to stand here and sulk about the fact that my husband's dead, even though we all knew he was going to die." And you're like, where has this come from? I just don't know. I'm just like watching this thinking, what the fuck has happened? What? And I really feel like I missed something. I really do. And I feel bad if I have, but if I haven't, I have no idea what that was at all, or why it was in the film, apart from to give the main character of this film a moment of speech. But the thing is, again, it still wasn't as interesting as Jared Butler's speeches, so it just made her look fucking mental, and I didn't really care about him anyway, so I don't know what that was. I might be wrong, but at this moment in time, if I have missed something, I apologise, but if I haven't, I have no fucking clue what that was about at all. Again, this sort of film also in some places feels like it undermines the first one, because what made the first film so cool was that it's like the 300 versus the Persians, and you're like, yes, this is awesome, it's the underdog, it's just 300 versus 1,000,000 Persians, and then this one shows that there's also a bunch of Athenians fighting them somewhere else, and they sort of like split the Persian army in two, and that wasn't mentioned at all in the previous film. And the Athenians, the film seems, I might be wrong, and I might have taken this out of context, and if I have, because like I said, if I watch this again, I might get a completely different message from it. But at one point, it feels like they're implying the Spartans are too aggressive, too in over their heads, and all of this. And then the film's like, oh, we need the Spartans are great, we will use their sacrifice to promote, to rally all of us together. And the Spartans said, we don't want a united Greece. And then the Athenians are like, well, we will use the Spartans to unite Greece to get the message across. And I just felt like this film just sort of like jumps around things and doesn't stick to one thing. It's like, Spartans are not the best. Spartans are the heroes of the film and will leave a message. We don't want a united Greece. We will unite Greece. It just sort of like seems to just sort of change things without explaining it. And like I said, I don't know if I missed something, and I feel really bad if I did. And if I, for some reason, missed out loads of information, I apologise. But it just seemed to like flip from one thing to the next, like as well as Gorgo, because Gorgo's like, we will fight, we won't fight, we will fight. It's like, Spartans aren't the best. The Spartans are heroes. We will not unite as Greece. We will unite as Greece. It's just like, okay, this seems to bounce around one in a ping pong ball. So I don't know. Again, if I missed it, apologize. I'm sorry. I keep saying that because I am worried. I'm like second guessing myself. Did I miss something? But it just to me feels a little bit like they kept changing their opinions way too quickly without much explanation to why they've changed their opinions so quickly. But yeah, that's how I view that, really. And because of that, it sort of it feels like it undermines the first film in quite a few places. So anyway, now on to the positives. Though, like I said, this film's action sequences aren't anywhere near as good as the first film's, there are still quite a few good action sequences. There's moments of really good action in the film, and reasonable amount of places. Sometimes the fast slow-mo did work, and when the film briefly did not just have way too much cartoony shiny blood, the level of violence and the effect of the gore worked and was effective. There's quite a few good brutal moments of the film where you're like, yeah, that was cool, or yeah, the fast slow-mo enhanced what just happened, or oh wow, that was badass, sort of thing. But for the most part, like I said, it was just over the top. But when it wasn't over the top, and when the action scenes weren't just relying too much on those sorts of things, it was okay. It did lack in the long takes and was a more traditional quick cut editing. But it was quite a lot of it was entertaining. You could watch it, you would have fun with the action. Good costumes, you know, there was, and it was quite well, the stunts were, you know, good and things like that. So overall the action was still pretty enjoyable and was really good in a few select moments or short sequences. So yes, the action was still reasonably enjoyable throughout the film. The CGI, for the most part, was great. I know I did criticise it a little bit in some places, but for the most part, the CGI was fantastic. I absolutely loved the CGI in a lot of scenes. The ocean looked amazing in quite a lot of places, and the final battle looked brilliant when it came to the visual effects and the visual effects, CGI, special effects, all of that. That did look brilliant. That had a lot of good sort of quality to it. So I'm not going to criticise it for the CGI on the most part, because for the most part the CGI was fantastic. Junkie XL's score for the film was also really good, and I really like Junkie XL. You know, I like him for Mad Max Fury Road. I liked him for Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, which he did with Hans Zimmer. I'm really looking forward to his complete original score for Zack Snyder's Justice League, which I know already from when you combine all the bits of music of his for that film, which has been shown, or you're able to listen to, it's probably about 1.5 minutes of music. But even that 1.5 minutes of music was better than the entirety of the Justice League score, the theatrical cut score, I mean. So I am looking forward to his music in Zack Snyder's Justice League. His music was great here. This film does a bit of a remix of War Pigs by Black Sabbath, and I really like the remix in this film and the way they use the song to, the end credits, and I thought that was really cool. Junkie XL is a great film score composer, and I did enjoy his music here. Even though they lacked the power and the aggression and the intensity of the cast from the previous film, the cast in this film did do a good job. And I know they're not Spartans in this film, they're Athenians, so that you could argue that would be why they're the less aggressive, they're the less shouty, massive long speeches, but it just didn't come across as that as interesting. However, the cast here do give good performances. I do enjoy their performances in the film, especially Eva Green. Eva Green gives the best performance in the film. She does a great job playing the main villain, Artemisia, I think it is how you say it. I might be completely wrong, and I apologise if I am. I'm not going to be able to say the characters' names in this because they're really long and I can't pronounce them, and I don't want to spend the next few minutes of this review just standing here making myself look even dumber than I already probably look, so yeah, I don't want to do that. But yeah, she did a great job playing the main villain. Sullivan Stapleton did a great job as well playing the main character, and Callan Mulvey, his second in command person, was also really cool, and I like him as an actor. I liked him in Batman vs Superman, and I liked him in this film. Jack O'Connell plays his Callan Mulvey's son in this film, and he's also really cool. And they sort of do a good job as the main three Athenians. You know, I'm not going to knock them at that, because they did do, you know, they gave good performances, and they were believable in the action sequences. It was good to see a lot of the cast members from the previous film come back, especially David Wenham, who I really enjoyed in the first 300 film. And I also found out he's the voice of Digger in Legend of the Guardians, and that is absolutely hilarious in every single way. But yeah, I liked him a lot in the first 300. I liked him a lot in this film, even though he didn't have a lot of screen time. It was nice to see Lena Headey again, despite the fact her character seems to be a bit all over the place. And yeah, it was just nice to see them all come back. Well, not all of them, but those two mainly. So yeah, the cast do, even though, like I said, not as powerful or as interesting as the previous film's cast, they still gave good and mostly enjoyable performances. It was great to see Xerxes' origin in this film, because you get to see why he's so entitled and why he loves himself so much and why he thinks he's a god. Because in the other film, he just thinks he's a god, he thinks he's better than everyone else, and you're like, where the hell did you get this level of entitlement from? Whereas this film does show why, show how you got it, and it makes make sense. So I did enjoy that this film did this, and it's actually based off the graphic novel Xerxes, I believe, so it makes sense that they gave him a good origin and backstory and showed why he is the complete arrogant piece of shit that he is. And his, the actor who plays him did a good job again. Rodrigo Santoro being the actor who plays him, so, he did a good job. So yeah, the cast for the most part were enjoyable. This is going to be my last positive for this review, and to watch the rest of the video, because it's going to be a spoiler positive. If you want to watch the rest of the video, my last little bit, come to the timestamp here, but are we talking about spoilers now, so go to that bit, so we're talking about it now. Anyway, so my last positive is there's a really weird fight / quite heavy sex scene between the main character and the main villain, and when it's happening, it's really confusing. I was like, what the fuck is happening? Why are they all of a sudden having like loads of sex, and what? And it's like a bit weird, and like I said, it's quite a heavy-handed sex scene, so I was a bit like, okay, it seems to be a bit out of nowhere. But then when you realise why they've had sex, and it's so she feels like she's now, got her grasp around the main character, he's now on her side, he's probably fallen in love with her sort of thing, she's got him wrapped around her little finger, she can do whatever she wants, and then he's like, no, I will never join you, I've just had sex with you and made you look stupid, and I am the superior one, and all of this, basically just to piss her off. He's just like used her, and I'm not saying that's a good thing, don't do that, but in the context of this scene, she had sex with him so Sheenan can use him. He's now on my side, he's can do whatever I want, I've got full control over him, and he's actually like, no you don't, I've just had sex with you, and I'm now going to go back to my team because we hate you and we're going to kill everybody you send. It was quite funny in a strange way. It was a great insult. Destroyed her ego like that. She got really fucking pissed off, and it was quite a good move, you could say, if you want to piss her off. Let her think she's finally dominated you, and then you're just like, nope, and just make her look absolutely stupid, and men were listening in and like, oh, he's just told her to fuck off. So, yeah, it worked. It was weird when it was going, because I was like, I don't know what the fuck is going on right now. This is like, whatever. Once you actually realise it was just for him to basically say, fuck you, to her, it was actually quite funny, and it worked really well, and it was a very good idea on his part. although it probably would be way too terrifying to actually, I mean, like, going to her side, surrounded by her men, and then pissing her off that much. Probably, you'd have to be very, very confident in yourself to do that. So, either way, it was a good way to piss her off, and it also showed what their characters are like, that he won't let himself be controlled or dominated by anybody, and it also shows what she's like and how she gets people to join us. You know, you got money, you got this and there, and then she knows she's really attractive, so she'll seduce them and have really angry sex with them for some reason. But yeah, that scene, once you figured out why it was happening, it did work quite well for what they wanted to get across. So I just wanted that to be my last positive, as it's a bit of a spoiler, that the main villain and the main hero have a hate fuck halfway through the film. So yeah, I just wanted to put that here. So anyway, now, my overall feeling on the film is that I'm quite impartial to it. It had a good performances from the cast, it had some fun action, the CGI and score were good, but just compared to the first film, it's nowhere near as good as it. I didn't really care about the story, as it wasn't mentioned at all in 300, aside from the Athenians are mentioned once, and they're just called boy lovers, so, it's not exactly the way they say it is an insult. It's like, if those philosophers and boy lovers can have that kind of nerve to tell you to fuck off Persians, and I'm going to tell you to fuck off Persians, is sort of like that. The Athenians' role in the first film was just to insult them, to insult the Persians, that's what the Spartans do. Because of that, because they're not really mentioned or shown or discussed or promoted or anything in that film, I don't really give a shit about their story in Rise of an Empire. I was like, oh yeah, you're a thing and you're in it, and I don't really care about any of you, because you're not mentioned or promoted. It just felt a little bit unnecessary. I would have much preferred the sequel. And that's the other thing. At the end of 300, if you're watching this, I've assumed you've watched 300. If you haven't, then sorry. You don't have to watch the rest of the video. It cuts to 10,000 Spartans, I think, fighting 30,000 Persians, and it's a year after the end. It's a year after the events of the film, and I would have much rather watched that. That would seem like a much better setup for a film. Whereas this film's telling a completely different story that I had absolutely no fucking interest in whatsoever. And it's the same. It's going on at the same time as 300, so it's not that interesting. And also, because that they're all fine a year later at the end of 300, as this film's happening at the same time as 300, I don't really understand what the point of this film is. Like, I know this is this part. They're not going to completely get obliterated in this film, because I know the Spartans still exist. I know obviously there's history, but this film isn't historically accurate, so you could think, oh, they might go in a completely different, route thing. But no, that they're all fine a year later, so I don't know why that they're promoting this idea that maybe they're not all fine in a film which is supposedly happening at the exact same time as the other film, when at the end of that film they're still all alive a year later. So I just didn't really care. I was like, I know how this is going to end. I'm not that interested. I'm not that fussed. I don't care really that much about any of these new characters or new people or whatever you want to word them as. I just didn't find it as interesting. It's impartial. The performances are okay, the action's okay, the music's okay, and if you love the first one, you'll probably find some enjoyment out of this. Like I did, I was not anywhere near as invested as the first film. The film sort of felt like a Zack Snyder film that wasn't directed by Zack Snyder. I'm not wanting to insult the director of this film in any way. I'm sure he's brilliant. It's just like he was just trying to emulate another director, and when you try and emulate somebody else, you're obviously not going to be as good as somebody else that you're trying to be like. You have to, if you want to be like other people, you have to combine a few, 4 or 5 different people to create your own new style of doing things. Whereas this film just felt like it was trying to be 100% Zack Snyder without it being directed by Zack Snyder, and because of that, it just didn't come across brilliant, because it just was like emulating off the first one's success. Had it been completely different style, and tried to be its completely own thing, would have been probably much better. It was just because it was trying to emulate it way too much. I was like, it's just not original or as creative as the first one. That's why I like the first one, and this one's not like. This one's not doing much effort compared to it, or at least it didn't seem to be. And it's telling a story I don't really care about, and all of these things. I don't want to sound like a hater or a whinger, or I just did a whingy voice. And I don't want to sound bad because I'm not a hater. Obviously, I'm a huge Zack Snyder fan. I'm a huge fan of any director with a vision, especially if it's good. And all of these things, I understand filmmaking is incredibly hard, and it's incredibly hard to make a sequel that's better than the first one, even as good as the first one. And all of these things, it's just, had it been its own thing, and had it been a more interesting story, I probably would have liked it a lot more. It's just because the story wasn't that interesting, characters weren't that interesting, and it was trying to emulate another director. I just don't think it was ever going to be as good as the first one. So that's my view on the film. I'm probably going to give it a 6.75 out of 10 for film quality, and entertainment values of 7.25 or... I feel like that's too harsh though. I'm going to give it, I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10, because the cast was good, and they gave good performances, and the action was okay, and the CGI was great, and the score was great. So I'm going to give it a 7.5 because it was entertaining in quite a few places. It just was not as good as the first, and was nowhere near as original. So yeah, that's my view on it. If you like the first film, you'll probably enjoy it. I enjoyed it. It's just that, compare it to the first film. The first one's a masterpiece, and this one's good. So, I'm probably being too harsh because I'm comparing it too much to the first one, but when the first one's like, wow, this is one of the best action scenes I've ever watched, and you're like, the second one's, you're just like, yeah, that was okay, yeah, that was fun, that was good. It's more disappointing than it should be. So that's my view on it. If you are going to watch it, I recommend it on Blu-ray, because as I always say, the quality, if you stream it, unless you got the best internet, it ain't going to be as good as this. So I would recommend the Blu-ray for this film. So yes, that's my opinion on 300: Rise of an Empire. Nowhere near as good as the first one, but was still fun and enjoyable, and I'm probably being a bit too harsh on it, and I might have missed a couple things. I hope I didn't. If I did, I'm sorry. And if I watch it again in future and I end up loving it, I will make another video saying I was wrong and I'm sorry. But at this moment, that's how I feel about this film. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. My next video will be for Man of Steel, which I'm very looking forward to, because I fucking love Man of Steel. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you thought of the film. If you think I'm wrong and I'm shit, say so. If you agree with me, say so. If you think I'm being too nice on the film, say so. Whatever it is, just let me know, and I will respond to you as soon as I can. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you again. Goodbye.